Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the fourth installment of the CoveritLive University web series. My name is Spencer Kitley. I'm the event specialist with CoveritLive. We appreciate you joining us for our latest webinar, and we look forward to sharing with you some important tips for maximizing the potential of your CoveritLive events. Today's session will include Twitter and Facebook integration, media library usage, some poll tips, and even a very extra something special. Before we get started, I want to provide a brief overview of the format of today's session. We expect this webinar to last about 20 to 30 minutes, and at its conclusion we'll take questions which can be sent via the WebEx client chat window. Additionally, during the webinar, if you will log into the CoveritLive event that you received a link to with the CoveritLive University information, you can ask questions as we go along, and a member of our team will answer those as quickly as possible. Tomorrow, we'll post this webinar to the web. You'll be able to view it again or refer others on your team to it so they can enjoy the same learning opportunity as you have today. And now, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the host of today's webinar. But first, everybody be sure to mute your phones so we don't have any further interference. And today's host, the General Manager of CoveritLive, Ben Schneider.
Thanks, Spencer, and thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate taking the time to sit down and listen and learn a little bit more about features we have in CoveritLive, some of these features we may have had for a long time but you may not be aware of, as well as some new things that we've introduced, and as Spencer alluded to, a little sneak peek at some of the things that we have coming. All in the area of getting the most out of your experience, engaging your users, and building not just a live updating experience, but a truly engaging and enriched experience with CoveritLive. So throughout this topic, we'll hit on a number of things, including how to promote your events through Twitter, features that we've built in where we can do that on your behalf, as well as what you can do and how you can assist those, as well as using Twitter content inside of your events, and make sure you're aware of several different ways that you can do that. We'll also touch on Facebook options that we have around sharing and hosting events inside of Facebook, so that way you can use it as a tool to draw more traffic and engagement through your events. And then we'll also talk about the media library, as well as setting up polls and trivia, and how each of these areas you can set up ahead of your events, that way you're prepared and don't have to do it on the fly, but can also do it on the fly during the course of the event as well, if you need to do it quickly. And then finally we'll talk and speak a little bit of the roadmap and where some of these features are going to be coming soon inside the product, where we're going to be expanding them. So we'll jump right in and we'll start with Twitter. The first area that we'll focus on is the ability to promote events through Twitter. And for those who may not be aware of this capability, there's two different ways essentially that we can promote your events in Twitter. First is that CoveritLive has a Twitter account, CIL_events, which you can see an example of here. And if you enable your event to be shared publicly, and you provide us some information such as keywords or hashtags about your event, we will automatically send out tweets whenever that event is about to start, and prior to that event, and during that event, so that way people who may be searching Twitter for similar content to what your event is running on can find those particular tweets and then therefore access your event. Additionally, you can link your own Twitter account through the My Profile page, and whenever you do that, that same tweet or those same tweets that we send out from the CIL events Twitter handle can also come from your own Twitter account as well. It's really important that whenever you're setting up an event to make sure to include the URL of the specific page where you will be hosting the event. We use that through that Twitter handle and through those tweets, as well as on our featured events page and live event listings on the CovertLive.com page, to show where your events are occurring and to direct traffic to those events through Twitter and through other means. So it's always important to make sure that you update that prior to launching your event. We know that oftentimes whenever you're initially setting up your event, especially if it's several days or even weeks in advance, you may not know what that URL is going to be and just put something generic like your domain name. But it's really, really critical to always come back, and once you know the full URL where you're going to host your event, or if you're using a channel page with us, or if you're going to host it in Facebook, to come back and update where that event will be located. And again, including keywords and Twitter hashtags will also help that a great deal. I'm going to show a quick example and make sure everybody knows where this is inside of their account page and inside of the console. So give me just a minute. I'll switch on over to our CovertLive demonstration account. So I'm logged into my own account here that we've used for all the CILU series webinars, and have a couple of events running and a few small things that are automatically being pulled into that. And I've logged in, and now I'm on the My Account page. So in terms of linking your account to Twitter, as we mentioned, you can do that into the My Profile section. So under Account, if you click on My Profile, you'll then get settings that are related to your CoverWide profile and that are used across all of your events. So in addition to plan information, depending upon what types of plan you're on, and your display information around your avatar, display name, and contact information, you can also enable and link your account to Twitter here. And whenever you do that, the automatic tweets that we talked about will also come from your account as well as the CoverWide account. Now, as far as setting up those automatic tweets on a per-event basis, I'll show you where you do that as well. Whether the event is already live and you want to edit it, or whenever you're setting up a new event, the setting is in the same place and can be adjusted in the same place. So here I've got a ticker that's currently open, and I'm going to edit the ticker. And this will be the same view if I'm creating it brand new. And the first thing you need to note is that if social sharing is not enabled, then these features won't be on. This checkbox right here controls a few different things. One is our Facebook sharing capability, which we'll talk a little bit more in a moment, and the other one is promoting your events through Twitter. The assumption is if you turn off social sharing is that you don't want to pull additional traffic through either Twitter or Facebook to your events. Maybe it's a private event, maybe it's behind a login, or you're doing it for just a very, very select group, and so you don't want it to be exposed through social media, and that's certainly understandable. But in cases where you're doing something very public, maybe you're covering a tech event or a sporting event or some breaking news, then you definitely want to draw as much traffic and as much engagement from your users as possible through social context. So once you enable this particular feature, you have the option to also publicize on Twitter. And again, if you ever have questions about these features, note that there's help in the question mark boxes right next to it, and I'll also explain those. So whenever this is enabled, you can add additional hashtags and keywords to your events that we will use whenever we're promoting your event and whenever we're tweeting about it leading up to whenever it starts. So it's very, very important as this helps give you additional content to be found under Twitter. It helps it come up under search tags and hashtags if users may be looking for some particular event. Maybe it's Hurricane Sandy coverage, maybe it's the new Apple iPhone, whatever it may be. It's very important that if you use this, you're helping to drive more traffic to your site and to your live events. The other really key item that I mentioned already and wanted to again show it here is updating the URL for your event. So right here I have an example that I've put in where I'm hosting this on another site, and it's key to come back and put the specific page where you'll be hosting your event and not just something generic like mysite.com or whatever it may be unless it's on your home page. When that's the case, we can't accurately direct users to the right page, and if they share or tweet about your event, then we also can't know the exact URL at which you want users to find your event. So it's really, really important to update this prior to the event launching or as soon as you know what this URL is. So in terms of setting up Twitter promotion and allowing those features to function, those are where those settings exist. The ability to change those hashtags and that URL are set up within an event because those change from an event to event. And the ability to link your own Twitter account is something that you can do in the profile section. There is only one Twitter account that can be set up per profile, but keep in mind if you have an account with multiple users in it, each of them could then link differently. So now we'll jump into a little bit different Twitter usage around how you can use Twitter to enhance your event. And there's a couple of different common examples you'll see used in this way for CoverWide. One way is to use Twitter simply as a content aggregator. Maybe you have reporters in the field or you're covering an event where there's already a lot of Twitter chatter, and so what you want to do is primarily have a controlled experience where you're pulling in Twitter content from select lists, users, or hashtags. Or maybe you want to pull in Twitter content and not have it automatically published. You want to review it first, but very quickly review it and then publish it into the window and moderate it or curate it. And that's a great example. We have a number of different customers who've used it in those cases. But then there are also an even more powerful way is to include Twitter content within your other CoverWide content, whether it's commentary coming from your users who are your audience members who are reading and participating, or whether it's your content providers, your producers, your panelists, whoever it may be that are also engaging with the audience. and obviously Twitter content can augment that and provide a more enriching experience, and also allow another way in which your audience can contribute content into the event. Keep in mind that you have the ability to selectively pull in Twitter content through specific search, which we'll show an example of in just a minute, or you can set up Twitter content to come in automatically, and there's several different controls you have over how you can do that. As we'll look at here in just a minute, and I'll jump back into our demo to show, you have the ability to add specific users or lists, as well as search terms or hashtags that can automatically pull Twitter content in. You have the filter option to display any content that matches that, or only top tweets. And the top tweets is something that we calculate with an algorithm that determines which tweets are the most impactful and have the highest quality based on who they're coming from, how many followers those users have, how many retweets, etc. And then there's some advanced options around that that are really, really important, including the ability to include only those tweets that match your users and lists, as well as your search terms and hashtags. If you do not check that box, then we will include both. They can match either one, either your users and lists or your search terms and hashtags. But if you check that, it'll be combined. Also, the ability to exclude all @ replies. So if somebody's doing a direct tweet or putting a tweet at one of your users and you don't want that to get picked up, then that is where you can control that as well. An important thing to note is that retweets are automatically filtered out unless the user manually, or somebody who in Twitter manually retweeted and adjusted the content, because then once that content is changed, it's more difficult to tell that it's a retweet directly of a specific piece of content. And so if it's from a user that you've included, or including a hashtag that you're including, then it will get pulled in. But we do attempt to filter out those as much as possible, particularly whenever they are the exact same tweet again. To show this to you live inside of our demo, I'll open up the console for our ticker. This is something that you can set up whenever you're doing the initial setup of the event, the window that I was on just a few minutes ago, or something that you can change and adjust once your event is already running, which is more common. So we'll give the opportunity for the window to load here. And to note where the Twitter capabilities are, if you look here under Twitter and video, and this is where we'll start. There's actually a couple of different places for Twitter content, but as I mentioned, whether you want to pull in Twitter content automatically or whether you want to search for specific pieces of content from Twitter and add those manually, you have both of those options. And I'll start with the option to search for specific content to include first. So, being a Longhorn fan and the recent passing of the coach, Darrell K. Royal, I'll do a quick search with a lot of Twitter activity been around him, but I'm going to do a search for DKR. Those are the initials of the coach. And you can see a number of different tweets come up. And when I have this, none of this content is going into my event automatically. But I have the opportunity to automatically add all content from a particular user and add this to my Twitter feed for this hashtag, or I can just add specific pieces of content. I'm clicking. Here we go, guys. Sorry about that. So this is one way where if you want to look for just specific content and you want to add that into your event, then you can do that. You can also decide to add that as a feed, and then if you want to change that later or add additional feeds and add other content that's going to come in from Twitter automatically, then you can do that as well. And that is under Show and Edit Twitter Feeds. So if you look here now, you'll see this is where I can add users and lists, and I've already added the CoveritLive Twitter account and the CIL Events Twitter account to automatically pull in content from each of those. And then the hashtag that I did for DKR, for the coach, because I'm running a sporting event and I want to include some of that content, I indicated to add that entire hashtag as a feed, and it did that automatically, and now you can see that here. And if I decide to change my mind on that, or I want to adjust some of the settings, then I can kind of do that. I can edit it and change the hashtag. I can remove it. And this is where I can decide how I want to adjust the top tweets filter and include all tweets or just the top tweets. When I'm done, I can save that. I can add additional hashtags, or I can remove it altogether. Similar thing for users and lists. So if I have specific users that I want to add, I'll add my personal Twitter account. Then I can do that. And again, similarly, I can edit settings and change that or remove it if I decide that I don't want to include that content. Now, for the advanced options I mentioned a minute ago, it's very important. Those are right there under advanced options in the Show button. And that's where you can select to only include all tweets, press your search criteria, and we give you a reminder letting you know that that's the case, and that's how your filter will be applied, as well as to exclude all @replies. And this is where you can adjust those settings at any time during the course of your event. And if you've used CoverWide recently in the past couple of months and used it in conjunction with Twitter functionality, then you'll notice that the branding and the way we display Twitter functionality has changed. And that offers a couple of benefits, including the ability for your users to reply, retweet, and favorite tweets directly from within the viewer window. It also provides Twitter branding that's clear and shows you which content is from Twitter. And it's changed a little bit of the way that we can do in terms of images. Any images that have been provided directly from Twitter are still shown directly within the event. But from other third-party services such as YFrog or TwitTicket, etc., we no longer show images directly in the event from those. We only show the links. And that's due to changes in Twitter's terms of service policy. Some of the other branding pieces, such as always showing the avatar and the user's name, etc., are also requirements due to Twitter's change in terms of service. And so those pieces are some of the features we had or the options we had around showing that information before are no longer available due to changes that Twitter has implemented that require us to show certain information around Twitter content. But keep in mind that actually provides a better user experience for your audience because they know content's coming from Twitter and now they can respond and engage with it directly. So now we'll jump into Facebook and talk about sharing and hosting your events inside of Facebook. So the sharing capability is something that we've had for a while, and it's very important that it can allow you to bring more traffic into your events and allow your audience and your readers to share interesting things that they're finding within your event, as well as participation. So whether it's a specific piece of content that they can share because the share button is enabled, or whether it's them taking an action, such as voting in a poll or a trivia, which they'll then be prompted to share that on Facebook. It provides the opportunity for them to publicize your event, let them know let their followers or their friends on Facebook know that they're participating and following along, and it can attract additional audience as well as give you more impressions and more visibility. This feature is enabled with the social sharing as we demoed just a minute ago. I'll give you a quick example of what that looks like in case you haven't seen it before in an event. So we've got our Twitter, Facebook social sharing, and Twitter capabilities on. I'm going to jump to my event URL. And we'll load up our event, and then you can see an example of that content and how that appears to your users for the opportunity to share. Now, for those of you who may have participated in recent events when we talked about things like SEO, as well as pre-roll advertising and monetization of your events, you'll notice that we have the CoveritLive advertising bumper put on the front end there. So we get a nice little introduction to CoveritLive. So in addition to whenever you mouse over events, you'll see a share button that users can then share specific content out from CoveritLive. And then you also see the ability within the toolbar within CoveritLive, which has also received some recent updates, the ability to tweet and share things from there. And that's what those share and publication options enable. Similarly, I'll show in just a few minutes setting up a poll and publishing that to your event, and you'll see the ability of whenever somebody votes on that to share that to their Facebook page. The other key piece around Facebook that I want to give you an example around is being able to publish your events directly into Facebook. For those who want to bring the traffic all to your site, then this option may not be as appealing, but if you have a Facebook page that you want to have users engage around or that users visit frequently, then the ability to run a CoveritLive event inside of Facebook and take advantage of the audience that's there and the fact that you already have a lot of friends or followers around that page can be a real advantage. And this is a very simple setup. This is something you've been able to do with CoveritLive for a long time if you were willing to go create a developer account in Facebook, set up a custom app, and paste the embed code in. But now we've made it really, really simple to where just from within the event setup, there's a single link that you can click. And if you're the admin of the Facebook page, you can select which pages you want to publish the event to, and that is it. You're done. And I'll show an example of that as well. Let me jump back over here real quick. So, whenever I'm setting up my event, I now have the ability to link this event to Facebook. Whether I'm editing it or doing the initial setup, I have now towards down here where you have some of your other options around installing and sharing the viewer window, there's the option to click to add this event to Facebook. And for any of those who participated in our session 3 months back, our first session where we talked about a lot of the new enhancements and features to CoverWide at the time, we also demoed this in. But for those who may not have seen it, I wanted to provide one more example. So I'm already logged into Facebook in the background. And with that, it detected that I was logged in. If I had not been logged in, I would have received a prompt to log into Facebook and then shown this page, which lists all the pages for which I'm an admin. And I've created a couple of just sample pages, fans of Texas, fans of CoverWide, and I can select to publish my event to one or more of these. So I can have any event published to one or more Facebook pages in addition to embedding it on my site. And also, if you're a user of our channel pages, one of our custom subscription customers, you can also publish it there as well. You can syndicate your event to as many different sources and destinations as you want. So I simply select those, indicate to add the page tab. I can give an image that I want to select, or I can just use the default CoverLive image. And then from the page, I can also edit the title of that tab if I want to, and change the name of it. So here's my Facebook page. I'm going to reload it now because we'll have some additional features on the page that'll show our CoverWide event. And as a management feature of my page, I can rearrange the location of the page, the locations of the tabs on the page, and show different things about the page itself. Here we go. Sorry, still my personal page. Let's actually jump into the pages that I published it to. So here you can see different CoverWide events that have been published to my page. And if I click on that, I now get a full CoverWide event within inside of my Facebook page. And just like it's running on my own website or a channel page or anywhere else, users can click in, users can engage, and see the content, and even if you're adding advertising, can receive advertising as well. So again, here's the feature to be able to see that within Facebook. There's the ability to share. I do want to mention that because whenever the user is seeing this, that share fades in and out depending upon which piece of content they're on, because it will allow them to share a specific piece of content. And because of the nature of web apps, sometimes those things don't show up as quickly or can be subtle. So if I mouse away too quickly or you didn't see it, then I apologize. But you should see the share button right under the username for the piece of content. And that's where the user can select to share it and then publish it to their own Facebook page. And right now I'm using it as a page owner. And so I switch that over to back to my personal account. And I can share that event to Facebook and allow my users to see it. In this case, I'll actually come to the CoverWide page inside of Facebook to see it, but that link could also take them to your own site or elsewhere. So now we'll jump into some of the most common things that a lot of people like to do outside of Facebook and Twitter, and that's more for their own content, and that's around sharing media content and media content and polls and trivia and things like that. And one of the key things to note that we always want to remind our CoverWide users is that you have the ability to set these things up in advance of your event. You don't have to do them just within your event, although we certainly understand that oftentimes some of what you're sharing is live and you may not have that content in advance. But if you know that something is coming up that you're going to cover, like a game or a sports game or the Academy Awards or something that you're going to follow live that you know a little bit about in advance, and setting up media polls and trivia around those pieces, it can be really powerful. So I'll show a few examples of setting that up ahead of time in the media library, as well as how you can do it during the course of the event live, and for anybody who may not be familiar with those. All right, so let's jump back into our setup. In the media library, if you look over on the left-hand side whenever you're logged in under Extras, and whenever you click on the media library, you have some instructions that let you know how to add different things. If you want to add a whole new folder, if you want to reorganize how things are adjusted in your media library, you can do that. You can also see what sort of content you already have uploaded. And so if I want to add something, let's say I want to add a YouTube video or a file from my desktop, I can do that. So I have the option of adding a local file, and I can do that by clicking Add Video to Folder, or I can simply add an embed from YouTube. And I've got an example of that we'll go ahead and grab. So I pulled up the little CIL bumper that we've already seen and put that's up on YouTube. And I want to add that. Here is where I can give the video a name. I've already got one of these in there, so we'll call it number 2. And this is where I have the option to include a YouTube embed code. Or I could upload a file from my own machine, my own desktop, and add that a video file instead from my local machine, depending upon where the location of the file is and what you want to do. And then once I'm done with that, I can save it. And there it is. It's been added to my folder, and it's now available whenever I'm running an event to add very easily. So if I go into my media library, notice it's going to go load our media. Under videos, there's all the content that I've added, including my recently added CIL bumper. I just double click it and can publish that directly into the event and go. So if I want to queue up videos, whether locally or from YouTube or other sources, then I can do that. And I can have those ready to go inside of the media library. Additionally, there's also the option to do that on the fly. So if I need to add something directly from here, particularly for images, which is most common, then I can do that as well. I can simply browse from my own desktop, optionally add some sort of a caption. And then upload that file. And then I have the ability, again, that's part of my media library as well, that I can include. And it goes ahead and dumps me right to where that file is and where that file has been uploaded, so that way I can double-click and publish that quickly as well. So it makes it very easy to do it on the fly or to have things prepared in advance. And then you have that content as a part of your media library in the future in case you want to reuse it. Now, video images are not the only thing that you can do that with, but you can do it with video and images as well as embeds from YouTube. Also, as you can see from the list here, you can do it for audio files, as well as your advertisement, which is something that we covered inside of the CoverWide monetization session. So if you want to include sponsor images or logos or things like that, you can have those pre-set up. But you can also do it for links. So say, for example, that I'm going to publish a link to something during the course of the event, the CoverWide University session, for example, then I can do that. I can give it a name and actually just provide a link and then publish that to my event. So there's various different types of media, and oftentimes people are mostly just concerned with images or sometimes a YouTube embed and don't realize that there's a great deal of content that they can set up in advance and add into their events. The same thing also goes for just flat pre-written text. So if you have an introduction or a helper content or something that you want to publish very quickly, you could do that. And then our next area, which is polls and trivia. So, one of the key things that we can't emphasize enough is that users love to participate in polls, they love to participate in trivia. No matter how simple of an event you're running, if you can come up very quickly with a few different questions to ask, users will react to that. Many users who may never submit a comment, who are not interested in having a comment published or having feedback, they're just following along, but they'll vote in a poll. And it's a great way to connect with them, to have them engaged, as well as to build up more activity around your event. And then it's an opportunity for them to share that to Facebook with their friends and get other people in, as well as tweet it as well. And it's just it's a great opportunity to build momentum and build engagement around your event. And whether it's a poll or a trivia, the main difference there being that whenever you ask for polls, it's just people weighing in on their opinion, and then it shows up in the course of the event, and they'll be prompted as soon as you publish that poll to vote in it, and then you will see it rotate through in the newsflash area of the event, so people can continually vote throughout the course of the event. The main difference with trivia, the setup is very similar, but you select one correct answer. And whenever that correct answer is selected, users are then awarded and know that they've checked or selected the right option as a part of the trivia. And optionally, if you want, you can add points to that. So people can add points during the event. You can actually have a game out of that and a leaderboard as a part of our gaming pieces that are included in CoverItLive. So real quickly, I want to show, I'll show an example of trivia and polls, and then we'll cut over and I'll give you, in the last few minutes, a peek at what we're doing to add some enhancements around all of these areas. So within polls and interactive, here I have the ability to add a new poll to a folder, and this is very simple. So So, for example, I've already added one before, but I could add something like a CIL session poll around what do you want to see next. And in fact, I've got one of these, so I'll just select it, and you can see it from here. I can edit this, but it's a part of my media library, so that way if I want to publish it on the fly during the event, then I can. So what do you want to see in the next CILU session? More Twitter, new console, SEO, advertising, whatever it may be. From within my event, I can simply click on polls and trivia. I have my CIL session poll right there, double click, and can then publish that publish that poll item to my event. Or I can make any changes that I want to before publishing it. Similarly, I can do the same thing, pre-set up trivia, and then also have trivia available. And this is where you can see that during the course of the event, once the poll is published, you can also end it later if you want to stop having people vote inside of that poll. Here's the user experience. Whenever the poll is initially published, they're going to get the opportunity to answer and reply, but even if they don't do it right away right then, they'll continue to see it down inside of the viewer window, and they can vote at any time. Here is where I've now voted in the poll, and I have the opportunity to share that to my Facebook page. Similar to sharing a piece of content, then you get the ability for the user to edit or add something about it. And then they see an example of the poll, and again, this links back to your event with the opportunity, based on where it's set up in that URL, to drive more traffic and more users back to your event from their friends that will see in their feed that they voted in that poll. Similar setup with trivia. Again, it can be done ahead of time or it can be done during the course of the event. And in this case, I have a CIL quiz. Of course, since I'm currently working in a ticker right now, then the trivia will not launch, but you have to be using a regular event to use trivia. It's important to note that. And that's because there does need to be a definitive end time, a certain end time around acquiring points and around users having the right answer for trivia. Last thing I want to note is something that's often overlooked in case you may not reference. There's a lot of shortcuts to different pieces of the media library, to settings, to tools, and the most commonly used pieces that are available right down here inside of the window whenever you're running your event. So if you want to do a live edit where you need to edit any sort of content that's within the event, you can do that very quickly by clicking on that first button. Again, I use the media upload button right here to add photo, video, etc. during the course of the event and add that to my library and then publish it. Also, the opportunity to do a poll very quickly on the fly. Maybe I don't have the poll already set up, but I need to add one now. Where to eat? Whatever it may be, whatever it is that you want to add, and then publish that quickly. So again, you have the ability to do those things on the fly or think about them ahead of time, which obviously is going to give you a lot more opportunity to really build out the interaction that you want with your event. And always make sure to check and mouse over these shortcuts down here. Look at the tooltips because these provide a lot of great abilities and shortcuts for you to edit things such as your Twitter content, your polls, and etc. So, lastly, if I can get to the right slide, we'll take a quick sneak peek at some of the advanced pieces that we have coming. To let you know, some of our customers who we've talked to, we've told a little bit about a new console experience, a new producer experience that we're working on that will add a number of new features around Twitter searching and filtering, and more flexibility even there now around that and around moderating that content, as well as adding in other social content sources and just an overall improved user experience. I'm going to show just a little bit of that now, but we're going to save the rest of that for a future session as we're still working on a lot of the details of that, and we'll have more information about when that will be available, as well as how it will be available in a beta test for you to still use the existing console while you learn the new one coming out in the next month. The information about that coming out over the course of the next month with the next session in December. So I'm going to close out our existing console. And then I'm going to jump over into our development test environment, where I will show you an example of the new console that we've been working on. And I don't want to give too much away because there's a lot of this that's still very much in progress and a lot of it that we're still working with. But I do want to give you an example of, particularly around some of the things we've talked about today, how you're going to be able to have more capabilities around Twitter and around search. So, I'm going to jump in here. My event is running on the left, And then I have the ability here to adjust my console to see multiple screens or not, and more about that to come. Let me shrink it down to make it a little bit easier for us to see. So, I'm going to focus right here. I need to do some Twitter searching. So in addition to being able to just search for keywords, which you can do in the current console, I now have the ability to do that and also restrict my searches to be based on links or images, to include or not include links or images only. So I'll warn you in advance that searching for images only can be a little bit dangerous on Twitter. So what I will do, though, is pop in a couple of examples of a search term or hashtag, and I want it to include some links. And this could be, as you'll note from here from the tabs at the top, this could be based on just searching for the actual terms of the content, or you could also search for users this way. Similarly, I could also search for CoverWide. And now that I have the ability to do that and restrict images and or links, then I get different search results and can filter through those and see those very quickly and see a big list of them and decide what I want to do. Do I want to publish those? Do I want to go ahead and remove it from my view here, or do I want to tag it and save it for later and do some other things with that? So this is a pretty powerful capability and provides you more flexibility than currently have in just the limited keyword search. Additionally, in the Twitter setup, you'll notice some differences here too. You still have the ability to manage users and lists, just like I showed in the current CoverWide setup a few minutes ago. But you now have a new option to moderate these. So if you want to automatically have all content from a particular user or list come inside, but you still want to review that content before publishing it, you can do that. You'll be able to do that in the new console experience, and then you can change that during the course of your event. So if it's not moderated, that content will be published automatically. If it is moderated, then what it will do is it will come into a holding window where you can review it first and then decide to publish it, which currently, whenever you have your users and lists on, all of that content gets automatically published. You can also filter it on additional words as well. So this gives you a lot more flexibility whenever you're adding users and lists that you want to pull in automatically and review that content. And curate it, and the same capability exists for search terms and hashtags that you want to pull in automatically as well. So whether you're doing it on the fly and want to select specific pieces of content to pull in, or whether you want to always have all content get queued up from a certain search term, hashtag, user, or list, you can do that, but you can selectively still moderate it rather than having it go directly into your event. You will still have the option for the top tweet filter as well as additional filtering based on keywords. And again, these are things you can edit anytime during the event. You can set up before or after, and use a combination of content that's automatically being published through Twitter, as well as content that you go selectively pull out on the fly. And we're going to be adding a number of other social sources of content to that, and a number of other features that improve the overall user experience. But those are things that we'll reserve for another day. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of idea of some of the additional flexibility that we're adding around pulling in social content and engaging with your users, and gives you a little bit of a sneak peek into the overall experience that we're building that we think will be much better and much easier to use, as well as more powerful for producers and panelists and contributors to events. So with that, we'll jump into questions and answers. And I know that the team has been looking at those through the event and from the WebEx dialogue, and at this point we'll take the opportunity to answer any of those that come up. But before that, quickly remind you that we have our next CoverWide event, which is scheduled for Thursday, December 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern, same time, same channel. And at that time, we'll dive more into the new CIL producer experience, which you've seen a little bit of today, but talk to a number of other new features that are completely new, and how the experience is being improved overall, as well as some of the other things that we have planned for CoverWide coming up at the beginning of 2013. So we hope you'll join us for that, and we hope that a little bit that you've seen today is sort of led your appetite to come back and see more of that in December, as we think there's a lot of powerful new features there. And also a last reminder that all of the CoverWide University webinars are posted on the web after they are completed. So if you've missed any of the previous ones on monetization, SEO, or an overall review of enhancements to the product this year, then make sure you check those out. There's a lot of good information in those. And at this time, I'll jump over to Spencer for any questions.
And to follow up right there, Ben, those CoverWide webinar archives. We'll send out a link to all the RSVPs tomorrow at the latest. And for the past ones, those are located, if you go to CoverWide.com under the Resources tab, there's a separate tab there for CoveritLive University. I urge you now to send your questions into the WebEx client chat window. We'll get those answers. We do have a few so far, so we will get started with those. Then this one comes from John. This question is, can I publish on multiple websites and or multiple Facebook pages?
Yes, that's a good question, and something I did mention whenever we were setting up the publishing an event to Facebook capability is that any Facebook page for which you're an admin of, you can select to publish the event to, and that can be more than one. It can be one or many. In my example, we only looked at one, but I actually published that to 2 different pages. And simultaneously, you can still use the traditional CoverWide embed in multiple pages on your site or on different sites. If you're a Channel Pages customer and one of our custom subscription customers are using Channel Pages, you can also simultaneously publish it to a Channel Page. So, in effect, you can syndicate your event to as many locations, as many different websites as you want to facilitate getting it to in front of as many people as you want and getting as much engagement as possible.
I have another question here. This comes from Laura. How do I add YouTube videos to my event on the fly during the event?
That's a good question, too. So, I'll see if I can jump back over into our demo window and show that, because that is a great question and is something that you can do as well, in addition to setting it up ahead of time. And if you were kind of looking at the screen whenever I was showing some of the other features, you may have seen the shortcut to the YouTube embed there. But if not, I'll make sure and kind of point that out. So as our console loads up, basically under your Twitter and video settings, you have the ability to, just like you can with other video content, set up YouTube on the fly. So if you'll notice right here, I click on Twitter and video, and this is where I earlier was searching for Twitter terms to add specific Twitter pieces manually, and this is also where I did set up all the other Twitter content. But this is also where you can search Google, Ustream Quick, and other sources. You can put embed codes here for Ustream or Quick as well as YouTube directly inside the entry box right here to publish that. And then also simultaneously, I didn't mention this before, but you can search Google if you want to search for content there as well to publish directly into your event. So you can do that on the fly. It doesn't have to be set up ahead of time, but if you know that content ahead of time and know that you're going to use some of that, then obviously you can, utilizing the media library, or you can go find it quickly and just put the embed right there in your event, and you have it right away.
All right, we have some questions coming in. If you're having trouble locating the chat window, if you go to the top of your screen, then it'll drop down and you can click chat there and send in a message. Our next question comes from Herb. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed when I'm running my events. Do you have any tips to make the event run smoother so I don't feel so stressed out?
To totally understand that. And obviously, today's session may have actually made that feel to some degree more overwhelmed because you're saying there's a lot of different things to do. Oh, do I need to add video, photo? Do I need to publish Twitter content? There's too many things to think about. The number one thing is we understand that oftentimes what you're covering, what your live blogging is, happens very quickly, and you just go run the event and get going on the fly. And in most cases for that, leveraging the content that you're providing just directly inside of the panelist window, as well as using maybe Twitter in conjunction with that, is going to be the quickest and most effective thing, and that's all that you're going to be focused on. And to totally understand that, and for certain contexts that makes sense. And I would say in that case, and stick with what you know, make sure you're getting the content updates that are most important and pulling from the sources that make the most sense for your audience. But in other cases, where if you're covering something and you know in advance that it's going to happen, maybe you're going to live blog or do some live coverage around a ball game, or maybe it's going to be a broadcast television event or an Apple event or something like that. You know that event's coming in advance. You know some of the things that are likely to be involved in that. You potentially know some of the players involved. And best advice is, just like you would for any presentation or any article that you're going to write or something like that, or a blog entry that you're going to do a little bit of preparation up front. Go in and think about what would be some cool content to add to this, what would be some cool videos to show, and set those up ahead of time. Set those up in the media library so you don't have to think and try and figure that out on the fly whenever you're running the event and dealing with user comments and everything else coming in. Have those things staged and ready as much as possible. Think of a few poll questions that you're going to want to ask during the course of the event and have those ready to go to sprinkle in, a little ways through and then later to keep users engaged and interested. Use the tools that we've outlined today selectively, and you don't have to do a lot of them to have a lot of power. If your event is going to be a few hours, then just a couple or three polls and trivia questions that are sprinkled throughout, every 30, 45 minutes or hour of the event will keep users engaged and coming back. Including a little bit of video or a little bit of content is good. You don't have to load up and have 10 different videos and nonstop images. Just a few here and there to let users know what's going on. Obviously, for something like something that may be a broadcast TV piece or something that users are following on TV like sports, the less images might be less important because they're already capturing that through watching on TV, and what they're following along for here is just additional commentary and fun interaction, and in that case, focus on text, trivia, polls, and things like that. If you're covering a live event, though, where users are going to be interested, hurricane coverage, or you're doing some, you want your audience provide citizen journalism on something that's happening, or you're covering an Apple event, which is where images speak large, then you do want to make sure you have as much queued up as possible and as much that you can get live from the event as easily as possible. And it's key to note that you don't have to think of all of that as a producer and publish all of that yourself, even though that's what a lot of the features we talked about today focus on. You also have the ability to allow content, as I mentioned, images can come in from Twitter. If they're provided directly within Twitter's app or directly through the Twitter site, etc., those images will show up automatically, and even when they're done through other utilities, they'll show up as a link. And so your users can provide a great deal of content for you through those mechanisms, as well as there's an ability we didn't talk about today, but there's the ability to have your users email comments and to have your panelists even email comments as well as photos into the system, giving you another option to publish content easily so you don't have to think about all of it.
And we have a couple questions here from Thomas and Richard. I'm going to roll them together because they kind of go well together. And how important is it to have the specific link associated with my event? I know you touched on that earlier. And to make my events easily accessible, where do you suggest I host them on my site?
So I think it's said it a couple times. It may sound a little bit like a broken record, but one of the most important things you can do, other than setting up your event, running it, and providing content, the next thing after that is updating that URL to where your event is being hosted and letting us know. It's absolutely critical, especially if you want to use any of the social sharing features, because we're relying on that URL to know where your event is hosted, or at least the primary location. As I mentioned from the previous question, you can have it hosted in a lot of different places, whether it's multiple Facebook pages, multiple websites, the channel page, etc. But the key thing is to pick at least one of those locations where directly on that link is where the event is to be found, and make sure that's updated so that way users and your audience can find it really, really easily. And in conjunction with that, we've talked a lot about this around SEO, but it's just a general best practice regardless of search engines. It's just a good user experience to consistently host your events in a place that's easy to find and is very similar. Whether you set up something on your website, such as mywebsite.com/live, and that's where you always put your current events and links to your old events, or whether you at least publish it a few days in advance so that way users can set up reminders and can find it, and you get some ability for Google and the other search engines to find and index that page knowing that event is coming up so that way it'll be in search results. It's imperative that you be consistent, and as much as possible you put it up ahead of time, and you make sure that the URL that you put it under describes the event to some degree, and the title that you give the page describes the event to some degree. So if you're doing, a live fantasy football chat with your buds, or you're going to do a Q&A around who should start this week, or again, you're doing, hey, here are my updates from, my hometown for the storm, make sure those are a part of the URL, make sure they're a part of the title, and as consistently as possible, keep your events in a similar, if not the same location, so that way people can find them. And that URL setting there that you have doesn't have to change that often then, because you're reusing the same location or at least a similar location. So, at this point, I don't know, if we have any other questions. I know we're close to time.
Yeah, some great questions, some great information there from Ben, and I can't stress how important, I know you said it as a broken record, how important it is to make those events easy to find for your users. We don't have any further questions. We thank you for joining us today for this fourth installment of CoverWide University. Thank you to Ben Schneider. As you mentioned earlier, our next event will be Thursday, December 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern, where we'll take a deeper dive into the new CoverWide producer experience. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.